with the understanding that they would donate those bonuses, or at least significant portions of those bonuses, to the McCain political efforts in 2008. If this is political reform, if this is campaign finance reform, I find it especially troubling, and I think it is incumbent upon the incumbent, who holds himself forth as the architect of such reform, who continually reminds us that character matters. Now it's time for John McCain to show that he has the character to come forward and to make a full accounting of this victimization of investors in the Rothstein Ponzi scheme and others that continue to receive scrutiny.
You're calling on Senator McCain to donate the $1.1 million that he says that he raised for McCain's last race. In your last race, one of your fundraisers donors was criticized, and you opted not to return all of the money that he had raised for you. Why is this different? I would
take issue with the template of your question, because it's as different as night and day. What we have in this is clear and uncontrovertible evidence that Mr. Rothstein was in fact directing employees, that Mr. Rothstein was offering bonuses with the requirement, or at the very least the expectation, that those bonuses would end up as contributions to the Victory Fund. Now understand, what you refer to was a template put forth by political opponents that had no basis in fact. And understand the clear difference. When accusations were raised about me in the media, no matter from whence they came, I stepped forward and met with you. And what do we understand in the fullness of time? Everything I said was absolutely correct. It never even rose to the level of an investigation. And all I'm saying is, what's good enough for me should be good enough for Senator McCain. He should come forward and explain to the voters. The other point that I should make, in reference to the premise you brought forth, is the fact that my political contributors were separate and sovereign entities that were not directed or were not diverted funds to funnel into my campaign. Indeed, as those contributors made very clear, to paraphrase one quote, they knew that I was an advocate for the rights and privileges of citizenship for Native Americans long before any lobbyist came into their lives, and long after he left. And in the fullness of time, all that has been borne out as absolutely accurate. The difference here is that you have what federal authorities believe to be a clear criminal enterprise, with the funneling of cash expressly for the political benefit of John McCain. If in fact Mr. McCain is the campaign finance reform architect, if in fact Mr. McCain continues to insist that character matters, then character compels him to come forward and give a full accounting and offer complete restitution.
Are you saying, JD, that McCain knew the money was dirty when he took it?
I'm saying that in the fullness of time it has been revealed that the money is dirty, and it seems to me that as the architect of campaign finance reform, that one who continually demands a higher standard of conduct, that it would be eminently reasonable and in fact practical and expected for Mr. McCain to step forward and voluntarily contribute $1.1 million, the amount of money Mr. Rothstein bragged that he donated both by himself and through associates to the restitution fund for those victimized by the Ponzi scheme.
So you've got lists of contributors here. Are you saying all this money is dirty, or just Rothstein's money?
Now understand, these are public records. You see the top contributors here. We're just simply pointing that out. And again, we'll be happy to lead you through the labyrinthine ways in which the contributions were made, and some might say disguised.
One more for everybody?
JD, are you now, or have you ever been a lobbyist?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm so glad you brought that up, especially since Mr. McCain held a fundraiser last night in Washington, D.C. with lobbyists and Washington insiders to run ads calling me a lobbyist. And understand the irony and the hypocrisy of the charge. Mr. McCain is the same United States Senator who lectured his constituents on how they ought to allow people who have come to this country illegally to be granted amnesty. So apparently in McCain world, it's okay for people to come to our country illegally. We can work that out later. But when I, in an abundance of caution, even when consulting with attorneys, was told that my level of public policy advocacy might not even rise to the level required to register, I thought it was important to go the extra mile and register. Now let's review exactly what went on, because we have the complete dramatic iterations on radio and television that claim some sort of misdeed. And again, understand, Mr. McCain and his campaign machine are taking me to task for obeying the law, while he is willing to give an excuse and a pardon and amnesty to millions who have violated our laws. As the law stands now, if one is involved in public policy advocacy on Capitol Hill that reaches a certain level, one must register as a lobbyist. A hometown friend of mine, one with whom I attended some college classes, contacted me because his intellectual property was being challenged by Washington's special interest. The tax attorneys were advocating to the Department of Treasury that my client's intellectual property be taken from him. The extent of my advocacy was as follows: to work with members of Congress in drafting and signing a letter simply reminding Treasury regulators that the Constitution grants Congress the right to administer patents. It does not allow the Department of Treasury to take that over by bureaucratic fiat. I had one client. For that particular project, I earned $10,000. Shortly thereafter, I terminated any type of registration as a lobbyist and have never gone to Washington, D.C. on behalf of a client to lobby on public policy again. But we do see, and this is a textbook case of the way in which things can be overblown. The irony, of course, as we gather here this morning, is that Mr. McCain comes out of a fundraiser last night in suburban Washington, D.C., complete with Washington insiders and lobbyists giving to his campaign so that he can come home here and attack me as a lobbyist. It would be laughable if there weren't such a gulf between rhetoric and reality. But again, a gulf between rhetoric and reality, a gulf between the actions and the pronouncements of John McCain are legion. We pointed many of these out on the campaign trail. Small wonder that Mr. McCain is reluctant to step forward and debate the issues. And I will conclude our time together as I began it. Today marks the 110th date. 110 days have passed since I invited John McCain to join with me in a discussion of the vital issues confronting Arizona voters across this state. At the very least, while Mr. McCain turned down an opportunity last night instead to opt for a fundraiser in suburban Washington, D.C., at the very least, common decency and a respect for the voters of Arizona should compel Senator McCain to meet me in a debate prior to the start of early voting in this Republican primary on July 29th. And again, Senator McCain owes the voters of Arizona an explanation for his affiliation with a convicted Ponzi schemer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Congressman.